that the Son of Man is?" And they said, "Some say John the Baptist, but others Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." Jesus said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered him, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." This is the gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. In the name of God, our Creator, our Redeemer, and our Sustainer. Amen. Some questions are bigger than others. Compare, "What would you like for lunch today?" with, "Will you marry me?" The first question, what we're going to have for lunch, might be important and take some thinking about, especially if it follows a good breakfast. But the second question is of a different order altogether. The answer to it will alter whole lives. So let's compare the two questions that Jesus asked in the gospel this morning. He asked his disciples first, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" And this gives the disciples the opportunity to respond with relatively safe answers. People are saying the Son of Man is John the Baptist or Elijah or one of the other prophets. But then Jesus makes the next question more difficult. "But you, who do you say that I am?" And Peter, impulsive, foot in the mouth, "Will deny you 3 times before the cock crows," Peter blurts out, seemingly without a pause for thought, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." Note, Jesus doesn't congratulate Peter and say, "Well done for figuring that out." He says actually something far more interesting. He says, "Flesh and blood didn't reveal this to you, but my Father in heaven." In other words, Peter, you didn't earn this insight. God gave it to you. And then come the words that have echoed across the world for 2,000 years and for exactly 100 years on this particular site here in Henleys. "You are Peter, and on this rock, I will build my church." Note, Jesus doesn't build his church on Peter's certainty, nor does he build it on Peter's courage. Remember, a few verses later, Peter argues with Jesus about the cross. And then a few chapters after that, he's even swearing he's never met Jesus in his life. No, Jesus does not, emphatically does not build the church on Peter's certainty or his courage. He builds it on the fact that ordinary, unreliable, easily frightened people can, by grace, still say something true about God. The church is not founded on Peter being impressive, it's founded on Peter being honest. In a moment when honesty itself was a gift he didn't conjure up himself, but came from God. And I think that that is worth pondering in our 100th year, because I suspect that it's close to the truth of St. Peter's story here in Henleys, down the ages too. 100 years ago, some faithful people, a committee, and actually their names are recorded in Pauline's wonderful display at the end of the display there. A group of people, a committee, a bishop, a handful of new residents, some people looked at this patch of land here in Henleys and said, "We believe something true can be built here." Not because they were certain about how it would go, not because they had it all worked out, but because, like Peter, they'd been given something to say, and they said it, and then they built on it. And that seems to me what's been happening for the last 100 years. Weddings and christenings and funerals, remembrance services and parade services, communions, matins, evensongs, Sunday schools and youth groups, vicars and curates coming and going, roofs leaking, paddling poles appearing, do you remember? The whole church being repointed, Pete. Choirs and organists changing ever so slowly over time. Support being extended locally and internationally, as the display makes clear. The same rock-solid, unglamorous work of people showing up and making their contribution decade after decade. That's not a small thing. Each individual pebble goes somewhere towards making the rock. But let's hold the Matthew reading alongside the reading from Acts, because Peter the rock is also, memorably, also Peter the rescued prisoner. By the time we get to Acts chapter 12 and the beginnings of the church after the resurrection, things have actually gone pretty badly, haven't they? James has been executed. Herod, seeing how popular that was with the crowd, has Peter arrested too. Peter is chained between two soldiers with guards at the door the night before what is presumably meant to be his execution. Isn't this about as far from "on this rock I will build my church" as you can get? Then an angel taps Peter on the side and says, "Get up quickly." The chains fall off. Peter gets dressed, thinking it's all just a dream. They walk past not one but two guard posts, and the iron gate to the city swings open by itself. It's only when Peter is standing alone in an empty street that he comes to himself and says, "Now I know that the Lord has rescued me. Now." Do you see what's happened? Peter doesn't recognize grace while it's happening. He thinks it's a dream, something not quite real. It's only afterwards, as he looks back, once he has a moment to catch his breath, that he can say, "Oh, yes, that actually happened. That was real. God did that." I wonder whether that isn't also true of church anniversaries. We rarely recognize in the moment which moment was significant, which sermon perhaps inspired faith, which choir anthem or organ voluntary took someone to another place, which hand offering support made all the difference, which small act of unglamorous faithfulness turned out decades later to be the hinge on which something held, something of faith held. It's only, it seems to me, in hindsight, gathering as we are doing now to mark 100 years, that a church can look back over its past and say, now we know the Lord really did rescue us in ways we barely noticed while they were happening. In my own time, I think of some amazingly timely provision that we have recognized sometimes in hindsight has been the Lord's work. In 2009, there was the provision of £4,000 for secular youth work, which we took on, even though our focus at that time, we thought, was church youth work. Then in 2013, there were two large bequests, which enabled us to bring the altar forward, the platform to be built, the servery to be built, and the link corridor to be made as well. And then just last year, our insurance company promised to pay for all our new heating system, the date of which installation is still in the balance, not July the 13th yet. But anyway, just when we thought we would have to pay for it all ourselves, and that gift has secured the funding for our new children's and families worker. And interestingly, our vision to do church youth work and develop it in 2009 is coming true in 2026. Here's what strikes me about putting these two Peters, Peter the rock and Peter the rescued prisoner, side by side. They are not two different Peters. They are the same one. The church isn't founded on a Peter who has got everything buttoned up and sorted. It's founded on a Peter who has to be woken up by an angel because he's fast asleep in the middle of his own crisis. The rock, it turns out, needed rescuing more than once. And maybe that's good news for a parish beginning its 2nd century. Why? Because none of us gets to be the church by having everything figured out. We get to be the church the way Peter got to be the church, by being asked a question we didn't earn the right answer to, and by being tapped on the side by grace when we didn't even know we were in chains. So today, on this Patronal festival, in this 100th year, I don't think the question Jesus asked his disciples has gone away. He's still asking it of this parish in Henleys, of you and me in 2026. Who do you say I am? Not what did the founders say a century ago, important as that might be, not what does the diocese say, but who do you say I am? This year, in this building, in our community, in this part of Bristol. And whatever we answer in our worship, in our welcome, in the way we care both for the people who walk in and the people we mix with out and about, that answer is the rock the next 100 years will be built on. So let's celebrate this Patronal festival in this centenary year. Here's to the rock that is St. Peter and each one of us. A rock not of certainty and perfection, but a rock that, when it tumbles, as tumble it will, keeps on being put upright again by the grace of God. Amen.